Welcome to Syndicated Nightmares, where each week we take a deep dive into an episode of Freddy's Nightmares based on the Nightmare on Elm Street film series. Today, hosts Dave and Michelle are covering Sister's Keeper, which aired November 19th, 1988, written by Jeff Freilich and Michael De Luca, directed by Ken Wiederhorn. This is a sequel to the pilot episode, which makes sense as to why Michael De Luca is involved in the writing of it, because he wrote the first one.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of cool that they brought back the surviving family members.
Yeah, I like that too. So the synopsis is, in this sequel to the pilot episode, the twin daughters of the cop who killed Freddy are now being haunted by Freddy, so the twins plot to find a way to keep Krueger out of their dreams for good. And I'm not sure if you noticed, I only noticed this because of IMDb. The twins switched characters from the pilot. The twin that played Merritt in the pilot episode is playing Lisa and vice versa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why they did that or how anyone really noticed it. So it could be completely false that this is it. But according to IMDb, the twins switched characters.
That's so strange.
Mm-hmm.
But they are very identical. Like the whole episode, I was like, which one is this one?
Yeah, and I had twins in my high school, but I could tell them apart. One's nose might have been slightly slimmer or something like that.
Yeah, every set of twins I've known in real life, I could tell them apart.
But not these two. It was really difficult.
And also they both dress like similar styles. It's not like one's fashionista and the other one is all dowdy. Like they have similar look.
Their hair is the same length. They kind of wear it in the same style. And I think that's cute and kind of expected of twins when they're like under 10 years old, maybe like under 5 years old. But when you get to high school and you really want to form your own identity, I don't think that they would have the same hairstyle, or these girls did.
Yeah, and they do have their identity in terms of like personalities and socially at high school. They don't run with the same crowd, but they just look very much the same.
They just look identical to it. Well, they are still in the same house that they were in from the pilot episode, where the officer was watching over the place and eating a chicken leg and gets killed by Freddy.
Mm-hmm. And this is the third Freddy-centric episode?
Yeah. So maybe people wrote in and they were like, we need more Freddy, guys. Like, come on. Merritt in the pilot episode, she was kind of like catatonic, she didn't really speak that much. She was, very often in her own world, and that kind of carried over into this episode.
Yes, although she's better than she was in that episode because apparently she was in the hospital for a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure she got the much needed therapy to be able to do that. I liked this storyline because it felt like an Elm Street movie. We have like kind of the original storyline back, where Freddy is going after the kids of the parents who murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking place in a high school, and the teenagers don't want to fall asleep, and no one believes that Freddy is real, and the kids aren't being believed. So it felt like it could be an actual Nightmare sequel. Maybe like Nightmare 8 Dream Twins, or
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, like in the first one, Nancy does a lot of problem solving. Like if I set this alarm and try to, have Glenn watch me and try to figure this out. And that was going on here too, where they were trying to figure out the nature of the dreams and figure out how they could attack him or how they could fight him.
That's a really good point. I didn't notice that when I was watching it. I noticed other similarities with Nightmare 1 and Nightmare 4, but no, I didn't piece together that it was very Nancy-like in problem solving and the whole alarm clock. So that's a really good thing that you picked up on.
Nancy's better at it though.
Oh yes, she is.
Just put that out there. Nancy's so good that like even two of these people could not beat her. Yeah.
So, and I wrote down in my notes that it's the classic twin trope, and I think I meant that as like...
Parent Trap?
Yeah, Parent Trap, exactly. That they kind of like switch places and no one can tell who they are anymore, and not even the boyfriend at the beginning could tell the difference between Lisa and Merritt, and of course the boyfriend wants to hook up with the twin sister,
Yeah, if you took out the Freddy, it could totally have been like a Disney Channel movie.
Yeah. How did you feel about the rock and roll Freddy?
I had seen that as a GIF, so when it came on screen, I was like, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, finally.
It was fun. I mean, it's not, I guess one could complain that it's not befitting a horror icon to be jumping up and down with an electric guitar, but it was fun.
Yeah. I guess we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves when not really explaining the episode all that well. Merritt is dreaming of Freddy, and Lisa isn't dreaming of him, but anything that happens to Merritt in her dream actually happens to Lisa in real life. So if Merritt gets scratched by Freddy, then Lisa will wake up with the claw marks on her.
Yes. And then also Lisa making out with her boyfriend, Merritt feels that.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
Yes. So Merritt believes in Freddy because she's being attacked by him in her dreams, and Lisa doesn't believe in him. And they talk about how their dad died. They refer to, I guess Lisa refers to the dad dying as he couldn't take it anymore. But if in the first episode, didn't he die from the gas at the dentist's office? It wasn't a perceived suicide.
Yeah, they said that it was an allergic reaction to the gas. Yeah. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe Michael De Luca forgot how he killed off one of his characters.
Maybe they thought he reached over and cranked up the gas.
That's something that they should have caught.
Mm-hmm.
Merritt is being bullied by this one girl in particular who I think likes the boy that likes Merritt, and maybe that's her motivation of picking on Merritt.
Yes.
So she kind of goes out of her way to be mean to Merritt, and Merritt doesn't have a very good reputation or a lot of friends in high school because she's known as the crazy girl who sees Freddy. But Lisa, her twin sister, is Little Miss Popularity, who does not dream about Freddy, and everyone wants to be her friend and blah, blah, blah. So in order to help Merritt, Lisa decides to dress as Merritt one day for school and kind of walk in her shoes for the day just to see what it's like and try to help her with her self-esteem or confidence or something. I don't know.
So I understand the switching places, but before that, Lisa has them dress up the same. But I just thought it was confusing because it wasn't Merritt. Sort of the way Merritt acts and her reputation as the Freddy girl that's the issue, not how she dresses. So there was nothing wrong with how she dressed before.
Yeah, Lisa kind of dressed more hip to what the fashion was back then. She had the teased out hair and everything, and she wore makeup, and her clothes were a bit more bold. Merritt, kept her hair back in a ponytail, and she kind of walked with a slouch to her. Just didn't really have that much self-confidence in her. That was Lisa's idea to, dress as me, and then people will treat you like you're me, and that will help with your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing let's get to the bottom of you dreaming about Freddy. Let's find out what that's about.
Right. And then, Merritt has a dream, the classroom dream, where she walks in and there's the guy who likes her with the guitar, and then it becomes Freddy with the electric guitar. But that happens right after the conversation about them switching places. So I wrote in my notes, Merritt is dreaming this, or is it Lisa? No, it's Merritt. It's just very confusing.
Well, it's so confusing that not even the mom in the episode could tell them apart.
Yes.
When they did the double switcheroo. Even the mom bought it. She was like, oh, okay, girls, whatever.
Right.
Which it's another parental figure in Springwood who doesn't give a crap about their child.
Right.
It's kind of funny because the whole thing of Freddy is the parents murdered him to protect their children. Now that their children are older, they want nothing to do with them. And that's even in the movies, that's in the TV show. It's these parents just want nothing to do with these children that they fought so hard to protect. You would think that just on a return on investment, that they would want to have a relationship with their child that they possibly could go to prison for.
True. But part of that was the aftermath of the first episode, that the husband died. And so I think the reason the mom was so not present is because she was working all the time.
If she was trying to maintain the house, I'm sure the husband or the dad, who was a cop, he got some sort of life insurance policy through Springwood Police Department.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, I work for the state and I have a pretty nice life insurance policy, and I'm sure he had like his own private life insurance policy. So I think that they would be pretty well off.
Yeah, maybe they spent it all on Merritt's hospital bills though.
Oh, that's true. But he would have his health insurance would cover the kids, and that health insurance is covered by the state, and it's pretty good health insurance. But maybe they didn't cover mental health back then because mental health was such a stigma in the 80s. Yeah, maybe it wasn't covered all that well.
We have a list of questions for Michael DeLuca.
Yeah, we do. So anyway, so the mom can't even tell the girls apart when they decide to pull the switcheroo.
Yeah, and then Merritt goes to school as Lisa, which I eventually figured out, but it took a while. I was like, oh, so now that's Merritt as Lisa?
And that's the first time we see the boyfriend approach Merritt thinking that she's Lisa.
Oh, wait, or did I get that? I think I got the names wrong. It's Lisa that goes to school pretending to be Merritt.
Yeah, the boyfriend goes up to Merritt. Well, it's actually Lisa posing as Merritt. So he goes up to Lisa thinking that she's Merritt, asking where Lisa is because they're the ones who are dating. And she kind of like blows him off, and he's like, oh, no, I've always wanted to hook up with you. Let's go do that. And she slaps him across the face because she realizes that her boyfriend is trying to cheat on her with her sister, which is gross.
Mm-hmm. So is this because she has more confidence? I mean, what stopped him from hitting on her any other day?
Yeah, probably because she had more confidence and like was actually going to have a conversation with him, because before she would just like look away and not even acknowledge him.
Okay. And then she's more confrontational with the mean girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure like if I'd watched this in the 80s, I would have just seen that character as like this one-dimensional mean girl, because she's really vicious. But watching it now, I'm like, wonder what's wrong, what's going on in her life that she feels the need to lash out like that.
She kind of reminded me of Nikki in the Killer Instinct episode with Lori Petty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so maybe they're related somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 vibe from this episode a lot. Probably because this episode takes place in a high school and we're in the classroom with the students a lot.
Definitely, yeah, they're freaking out in the middle of class.
There's one scene where I think it's Lisa running through the hallway as Merritt, one of the girls. She's running down the hallway, and you hear Freddy say, "No running in the halls."
Yes, I did catch that, and she's bleeding
from her arm.
Like Nancy.
She's bleeding from her right arm, like right where Nancy burned herself in the English class.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's bleeding from her arm, and I was like, all right, like... That's the kind of wink and nod that I've been waiting for watching these episodes, that even though it isn't Freddy-centric, there's at least something to be like, yeah, true Nightmare fans, we know that you're watching and this one's for you.
Yeah, definitely. And she says, she like snaps back at the teacher. He says like, what are you doing here? And what are you doing out of class? And she says, bleeding, you idiot. I think Nancy was the only person in the movie series that really snapped at people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think in Nightmare 4 any of the characters had a scene or dialogue with another teacher.
Yeah, I guess not. You saw them, but they didn't. You saw the teachers, but they didn't really interact with them.
Yeah, because Bob Shea, he played a teacher in Nightmare 4, but he just kind of read to the class or lectured them or whatever. They didn't really have a conversation with him, so there's no interaction.
Right. And the physics teacher when Sheila is taking the killer physics test.
Oh, well, no, I guess in Nightmare 2, Jesse has a lot of interaction with his...
Coach Schneider. And the science class where he falls asleep and there's a snake.
Oh, yeah. Jesse, he did talk back to his teachers, but he was also going through a heck of a time like Nancy.
He talked shit about him when he didn't think he was listening. Nobody tells people to F off quite like Nancy does.
That's true. That's true. That needs to be like a meme or something. No one says fuck you like Nancy Thompson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and she does, well, I guess as Heather Langenkamp, she does in New Nightmare. She says fuck you to Freddy.
Well, but she's supposed to be playing Nancy, so is that Nancy saying it or is it Heather saying it?
I guess it counts for both.
Yeah, because Heather is giving Nancy her strength and all that. But yeah, I get something to ask her, I guess,
yes.
at the next convention.
Which character should be credited with that line?
Yeah. Merritt and Lisa figure out that if they dream together, they can beat Freddy because they realize that they can pull each other into their dreams. So with this newfound knowledge, they decide to go to their guidance counselor, who is, as they say, is from the 60s, so he'll know about this kind of stuff.
Right. And he reminded me of like that aspect of like, older guy who knows about dreams and psychedelic stuff. Reminded me of Doc from Freddy's Dead.
Oh yeah, I didn't even piece that together, but now that you mention it, yeah.
I mean, it predates Freddy's Dead, but it was like a similar concept for the character.
Yeah, so they go to the guidance counselor and he's basically like, yeah, you can totally be in one another's dreams because you're twins and that's how being a twin works. So go with that. So they do, and they realize that they can beat Freddy if they're together because they're in the same dream together. Freddy goes after them, and they basically say, I don't believe in you, and Freddy, vanishes. So
right. Well, before that, there's a scene in class where they're getting hypnotized so that they can show that if they're both thinking the same thing, they can see the same thing. But I found that scene really funny. So they're sitting there at the front of the class right next to each other. And I guess the concept is if one believes it, they both believe it. So he's giving a suggestion to one of them. And then it's like, and look, they both react to it. But the second one's sitting right there. They can both hear him.
Both hear it, yes. So they're sitting in the classroom. And the guidance counselor is whispering to one of them or both of them. And so they both dream that all the classmates that have been watching them disappear, that they are alone in the classroom. And then they wake up from being hypnotized and they realize oh no, everyone's still here. And I kind of found that odd that, first of all, the guidance counselor had authorization to do hypnotic experiments with two underage girls in a high school classroom.
Yeah, well, actually, I remember being in high school at a youth group convention, and the fun activity they had one night was they brought a hypnotist, and he hypnotized a couple people.
Did you have to sign a waiver or get a permission?
I didn't do it, but I mean, it was very tame things. Like he said, you'll forget your name, and then he gets the guy out of the trance, and he says, "And what's your name?" And the guy's like, So it was a
yeah.
So yeah, I guess you can bring in a hypnotist for high school students. And it was a pretty tame suggestion. You won't see anyone. He didn't have them do anything humiliating.
But I feel like there should have been another teacher there. But I guess having a classroom full of students as your witness maybe was enough for it not to be such a liability. I don't know. That just struck me as really odd that he was allowed to do that. And granted, I know it's a TV show and you just got to go with it. But there's one of my friends has a saying called "bullshit monkeys don't fly," and the concept is when you're watching The Wizard of Oz that you are so on board with it that you are able to believe everything until you get to the flying monkeys part. And that's when you're like, nope, I draw the line. This movie is completely fake. This could never happen. Bullshit, monkeys don't fly. And that's so whenever it's something like this happens, okay, I'm willing to believe all of this up until he hypnotizes the underage students in a classroom. That's your bullshit, monkeys don't fly.
Yeah. But I think he does say at the very beginning, we talked before and I got their permission. But yeah, but they're minors.
Yeah, minors.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting phrase. Are the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz really that that bad compared to anything else?
Oh, no. And that's the whole joke behind it. Really, it's the flying monkeys that does it for you, really.
Mm-hmm. Right. Talking scarecrow is fine.
Yeah. Everything else you are on board with except for the flying monkeys. So I noticed that in this episode, it seemed like they had a much bigger budget for practical effects than they did in the previous episodes.
Yeah, I loved the Freddy stretching arm. That was pretty great.
Yeah, that's what I wrote the practical effects down for, that arm. So the girls are in another shared nightmare because they're going to go in and beat Freddy for good. And so they dream of him together. And Freddy grabs one of the girls and the sister is really far across the room, more than an arm's reach away. So Freddy's arm just grows 20 feet from his sweater in order to grab Merritt, I think it is. It was really nice to have that kind of visual effect again, or that practical effect in Freddy TV show. And it was Mick Strawn was the production manager, so I don't know if he was responsible for that, but if he was, great job. Because it was very welcome to have that in an episode.
And then they say you don't exist, and he disappears, and then Merritt wakes up and goes downstairs, and Lisa's on the couch, and Freddy pulls her into the couch, which was a cool thing.
Yeah, because basically Lisa realizes that no matter how much we don't believe in him, it doesn't matter, because he doesn't need for us to believe in him in order to be real. Mm-hmm. So basically Lisa realized we are damned. And that's that. So yeah, Freddy pulls her into the couch, and then doesn't Merritt end up in a psych ward? Yeah,
Merritt wakes up, and then Lisa, because she's been pulled into the couch, is dead on the bed next to her.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But I was wondering, so Lisa, gets pulled into the couch and slashed up, but are they dropping the... when one twin gets hurt, the other feels it?
Yeah, because technically, if Lisa was the one who was killed, it should have been Merritt who died.
Yeah.
But, so the mom comes in after Merritt wakes up and sees that her sister is just all slashed up and dead on the bed. And at first, I was like, oh no, Merritt will be able to talk her way out of this. It's fine. But when the mom comes in and she's like, what did you do to your sister? And Merritt's like, no, it was Freddy. I was thinking, oh yeah, you're going to be locked away for this because everyone thinks that you're crazy. Mm-hmm. This just makes you look even crazier. So it does look like you murdered your sister in her sleep.
It's like that. There was a really good scene in the movie Shutter Island when I think it's Patricia Clarkson says to him, like, when people think you're crazy, like, if you tell them you're not crazy, you just sound crazier. The more you say it, the crazier you sound.
Yeah, and that's basically what's happening to Merritt right now. So how did you feel about this episode?
I mean, as you were saying before, it's the most out of all the episodes so far, it's the one that's most reminiscent of an actual Nightmare movie. So that I really like, but I was a little put off by the Parent Trap thing and not really knowing which twin I was looking at.
That really took away from the episode of second guessing myself as a viewer and who I was watching and why this was going on.
They could have done the entire episode with fraternal twins and taken out the switching places thing.
Yeah, that's very true. I wonder if it had to be Merritt and Lisa, because I'm sure when they wrote the pilot episode, they weren't thinking this far ahead that there was going to be a sequel episode to this. But yeah, they easily could have used fraternal twins on this and there would have been no confusion at all, because the Parent Trap aspect of the story, it just wasn't needed. And for, it's just that twin trope for no reason. It didn't help the story at all.
When I was in college, I'm not sure where I got it because it was before eBay, but I had an 8x10 with a picture of this episode. It was like Freddy grabbing one of the girls from the scene at the end right before his arm stretches, and I had it on my wall in college. So yeah, 20 years later.
How'd you get that?
I don't know.
Do you still have it?
I think I do. So it was like a promotional 8x10, like they released by movies, but they did one, or 4 movies, but they released one for the TV show. So when that scene happened, I was like, oh, there's that that picture I had.
Well, the actors who played Merritt and Lisa didn't go on to do anything else after Freddy's Nightmare. So I wonder if they just did not have a good experience with this. I thought their acting was good for a TV show. Mm-hmm. They were believable in most parts. Some parts I was like, you might want to tone it down a bit. I enjoyed their performance for the most part. They did a good job. Mm-hmm. So I wonder why they decided to hang up their acting hat.
One of the popular one was a little reminiscent of Brooke Thies.
Yeah, definitely. I saw a lot of Wendy Lubbock in her. It's probably just the hair. Well, then that attitude.
Yeah, some of the dialogue she was giving, I saw some Wendy Lubbock, Debbie Stevens.
Yeah, oh, Debbie Stevens, she's so great.
She is, yeah.
Okay, so you liked this episode?
Yeah. Except
like might be a strong word.
Right. I mean, some parts of it, I liked the nightmare stuff. Some of the parts of it were a little bit of a slog to get through. Oh, but I do want to say, since my boyfriend is a math PhD, when they were in math class and the teacher was talking about it, I'm like, get in here, they're talking about math. And he's like, oh, let's just see how accurate they are. And he watched it and he's like, that's absolutely right. He explained that really well. So just so you know, I fact checked the math instruction, and it was on point.
Well, they were on point in the Killer Instinct episode with Lori Petty when they were talking about the Emancipation Proclamation happening in 1863. They are being factual so far with what they're teaching the students, so
yeah,
that's good. A lot of, hopefully these students from Springwood High go on to lead productive lives because they have a good education.
Well, and then we get to, the opening sequence of Freddy's dead, and it's like, all the kids got killed.
Yeah, so I guess a lot happened between 1988 and 91. Is that Freddy's dead?
Yeah.
No, I mean, 3 years can really take a toll on the population. So
kids got killed, Roseanne moved in.
That might be indicative of one another, we're not sure. Okay, do you have anything for next week's episode?
Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please join us next week when we talk about Season 1, Episode 8, Mother's Day, which is similar to Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, but instead of being gay-themed, it's incestuous.